after that party, same thing over and over. That's exactly what a cycle is. And so many of us mismanage cycles. Hi, my name is Kelly Teofil, and this is Live a Life You Love, the podcast where I help you go from simply surviving to thriving by teaching you how to manage your emotions and your thoughts, and then using that information to create momentum in your life. Today, we want to continue with the conversation on seasons. Now, I know I posted at least 3 videos on seasons before, but some of you actually brought up some really important aspects of this conversation that I actually want to dive into. So somebody asked me to break down the difference between being stuck in a cycle or am I in the middle of a season. Now, the two are different, so I want to take some time today to break down the two of them and help us to fully understand the balance between them, because I think sometimes we think, I am stuck in a cycle or is it a season? So I want to bring some clarity to that, and how do we strike the balance in navigating the both of them. So when you hear the word cycle, now guys, my mind is a little dramatic, right? When I hear the word cycle, I remember when I was in Standard 5, I know I have American audience at the time, I don't know what grade that will be. In Standard 5, I remember you used to have a little diagram where you would see the caterpillar, and then it would go through the kind of cocoon stage, and then it would go to the butterfly. I think cycle and I see that, right? Now, the way in which we are thinking about cycle today, we are talking about that repeated pattern. So that's exactly what a cycle is. It is a repeated pattern, a process that always occurs in a very predictable manner. So that's what a cycle is defined as. Now, we have seasons, and we understand that seasons are actually phases in our lives. So here in the Caribbean, we only have 2 seasons. You have the wet season and the dry season. But we know around the world we have summer. So you have summer. I'm trying to behave, guys. Summer, we have winter, we have autumn or fall, and then we have spring. So those 4 seasons, they are phases, and with those phases come very distinct features. So you hear the difference between a cycle, repeated patterns, very predictable, versus a season, which is actually a phase of life that comes with very distinct features with the changing of that season. Now, how does that fit into our life, right? Now, there are cases where people kind of give cycles a negative connotation, and the reason for that is based on the definition. You hear what it says it is, right? That predictable, repeated pattern that continues throughout your life. So it's the same thing over and over and over. Now, I have always wondered if there is a case where you could be stuck in a cycle, and because you're stuck in a cycle, your season seems to drag on longer than usual. So let's break down a little bit between the difference between a cycle and season. Now, there are benefits to cycles because I think cycles make up seasons. So cycles actually allow you to have discipline and consistency because of the repeated pattern. You remember, if you're doing a habit over and over, you know, if done with the right attention, you begin to develop the discipline or the habit of getting it done. So cycles actually allow you to master the art of something. You get good at it by doing it over and over and over. Now, while I say that, people like to say practice makes perfect. I always say practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. So make sure you are practicing the right thing while you're practicing it, right? So cycles allow you to master something if given the right attention, if done properly. It allows you to be efficient, as well as cycles, once done well, it allows you stability. Because you're able to guess where this is going, you have that stability, and a lot of us like stability. I don't know anybody who don't like some sort of structure in their life. That is what a cycle does for you. However, when mismanaged, because anything that is mismanaged is going to malfunction, when mismanaged, here's what a cycle could become. It could become a space of being stagnant. It could become a place that becomes frustrating. It becomes a place that presents absolute burnout to you, or it could become very monotonous. So remember, I have a song that I used to sing long time, after that party, same thing, over and over. That's exactly what a cycle is. And so many of us mismanage cycles. We mismanage cycles, and because we don't understand the balance of it is why we feel frustrated. So that's why when I have people coming to me and they're saying they're feeling stuck, they're not going anywhere, is because they mismanaged a cycle that was actually supposed to help them create momentum. So on the right side of the coin, when you're dealing with a cycle in the right way, the repeated action creates momentum. Because you can imagine, if you get really good at something and you keep at it and you keep at it, eventually you master it enough that you can move to a better level. Versus if you mismanage the same thing, so you keep wasting time, you now backpedal. So you want to always make sure that you find the balance of making sure that that cycle is doing what it is meant to do, which is creating the momentum that you want. Now, of course, let's flip the season. Now, we've tackled season for a long time, over the past 6 weeks. We know that what seasons do is it facilitates growth. You need to have summer in order for fall to come. You need winter to happen for spring to come, because it facilitates growth. Something has to die for something else to live in this particular case, right? And so seasons facilitate growth because of the external factors. The environment forces us to change. The people that we're around at work, they force you to change because sometimes it's so difficult to deal with. It brings a new you out. Seasons do that for you. Here's where the problem with seasons kick in, because you can mismanage a season, but sometimes it's out of your control. But when you mismanage how you react in a season, it becomes something that feels unpredictable. The speed at which you have to adapt leaves you overwhelmed. So that's why you have to know when in your season what is appropriate behavior for the season that you're in. And we touched on that a little bit before. What do I mean like that? It is rainy season here in Trinidad. I do expect to see people walking around without your umbrella and just walking through City Gate with a willy-nilly with a flip-flops. That'll make sense because you will end up in a big drain, because you know how City Gate is going underwater quick, essentially. But my point is, if it is that you do not know the season that you're in, you're not going to prepare properly for it. So we mismanage seasons in that way. So now that we understand the difference between the season and the cycle and how they interact with each other, I want us to be able to now manage the two properly. Now, you remember with a cycle, the problem is if you mismanage it, you can get stuck in the cycle. If you mismanage a season, you become overwhelmed. So 3 very simple ways I want you to think about managing your cycle and your season. 1, get very clear on your direction. If you know where you're headed, you can tell when a cycle no longer serves you, when the repeated action isn't generating the result that you wanted to do. That is something that we have to pay attention to. So you have to be clear. If you know where you're going and you know what is not working for you anymore, you have to know when a habit has expired. This habit is not working anymore. It's not yielding a result. So it's time to shift focus, shift it so that I get the result that I want. That happens only when you are clear. So my question is, what direction are you heading in? Do you know the direction that you're heading in? I need you to get very clear on that. That is number 1. Number 2, when you're in the middle of a cycle, which could sometimes feel like the same thing over and over, or in the middle of a season where everything feels heavy, you have to stand on your values. You build your life off of your value system, meaning you act based on what you believe in. For example, if you're somebody of honesty, I expect you to conduct business, to interact with people from a place of honesty. If you're somebody who values integrity, that is a place from which you are going to always build your life. Now, when cycles become challenging or seasons become challenging, you're going to respond from what you stand on. It therefore means that you have to have a very solid foundation on what you believe in. So some of us, sometimes we allow our belief systems to waver with what people say, what people think. Well, do this and that, we'll talk. Hold on. You have to stand firm on what you believe in so that when cycles become heavy or when seasons become heavy, you know what you are going to do and how you're going to behave to help you navigate it. So I want you to remember, you have to remember as you go through these cycles, as you build your habits, make sure that your value system is integrated deeply into that. The third thing I want you to remember as you navigate your cycles and your seasons, remember what you are predispositioned to do or to respond. So for example, cycles, while they can produce momentum in your life, sometimes the monotony of it becomes heavy and it becomes frustrating. It doesn't mean that's bad. However, some of us have to admit that under pressure, we act out of pocket sometimes. Do you know the way in which you act out of pocket? Or let's find the proper term for that. Do you know the way in which is misbehave? Do you know the way in which you misbehave when you are under pressure? You have to know that because sometimes a cycle is going to feel like pressure. So do you know the ways in which you are likely to respond badly in the middle of a cycle when a habit is not working for you, when you feel stuck? How are you likely to behave? So I need you to think about those things when you're in the middle of a cycle. I had to learn that one of the things that indicated that I was in the middle of a toxic cycle is when my patience was just running real short for no reason. Like I'll get snappy, I'll be on edge. I realize, okay, so I am reacting bad to this because this cycle is no longer serving. But I had to recognize my behavior in the middle of a cycle in order to realize that it was no longer serving me. So all that to say, the difference between cycle and seasons, we clarified it at the top of the episode where I said cycles usually are those patterns that are predictable and happen over and over and over. Cycles can be good if we use it to generate momentum. So you build habit, you build consistency, you build discipline. If mismanaged, cycles can leave you stuck and stagnant and feeling overwhelmed. With seasons, while we can't control a season, the way we react in a season is on us. So sometimes we have to remember that seasons are meant to generate growth, to build us up. If you mismanage a season, you can feel like if you're being destroyed if you don't know how to regulate that. These 3 simple things that I shared, make sure you know how your predisposition. How would I know I'm stuck in a cycle is based on your behavior. 2, stand very firm on your value system regardless of what is happening in the cycle or the season. You have to allow your foundation of what you believe in and you've built your life on to be there for you. And then the third and the final thing, which was the first thing that I mentioned, was to get clear on your direction. Know where you're going. So if you are off course, you can course correct. Cycles sometimes make you feel like if you've gone off course, if you know where you're heading, you know how to pull the car back in order. Yes? So thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next episode. This is Live a Life You Love, and as always, I'm forever grateful that you guys have been tuning in with me.